Hey guys, welcome back to the Way UK podcast. My name is Kane and I'm here with my co-host Izzy and Zenya. Welcome. You guys excited for this today?
So excited. It's going to be lit.
Yes, and also we have Jesse, who's doing on the street interviews. So shout out to Jesse. We've seen him in this video and the podcast as well. And yeah, so today we are going through a brand new series called 101, where we're going to be talking about the foundational principles of Christianity. Today we're talking about prayer. So my question for you guys today is, what is prayer?
You're looking at me. Okay. Prayer is just simply talking to God, having a conversation with the Lord. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's literally just communication. Just talking to God and listening to God as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we, as Christians, it's about having a relationship with Jesus, and good relationship has good communication. And that is what prayer is, as you said, just communication.
Awesome. And was there a moment in time where you first prayed, and how was that for you guys?
I don't remember. I remember growing up through like Sunday school, and I remember them teaching about prayer and like the teaspoon prayer, like TSP, thank you, sorry, please. I remember doing that. I remember doing that before bed. But I think it just kind of transitioned into a bit more like adult prayers.
Yeah, I remember the first time I prayed, and I just joined my media team. I just volunteered in my media team in my church, and it was all in a circle, and then they asked me to pray, and I remember praying and I stuttered so much. I was like, what do I do? Because I never grew up in a Christian house, so I didn't know anything about prayer. I was like, how do I start? And I remember just praying, and it was like the worst prayer. Yeah, it was so bad.
Some people sound so good praying.
Yeah,
some people have great words,
and other people were just not so good words. But I think it's just a process.
Well, God doesn't mind. I think a lot of people have like very fancy words and they sound very put together, but actually you're just chatting to. Just a conversation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Has a family member or friend ever prayed for you before?
So we had a chaplain and he prayed for me when I was losing someone close to me in my family.
How did that make you feel?
At the time, really calm and peaceful.
One of my close friends, there was a time where like I was in a dark place, like a lot of the attention towards me was quite negative, and she literally prayed over me. Like one afternoon, I just did it, and I felt amazing after.
I think I got healed once. I was complaining about maybe my knee or something, and my sister prayed for me and the pain went.
Someone at work actually prayed for me because I couldn't sleep at night, and she took my hand and said a prayer so that I could sleep at night.
And did you?
Yeah, got better. My sleeping got better, yeah.
Do you have any like misconceptions about prayer or anything that you thought before, and now that you're older in your faith, you're like, oh, that's not true?
Well, I think like we just said, like it's a conversation with God. Like you don't have to sound so poetic or sound these big extravagant words. Like God's not looking for those stuff. He's just looking for your heart and just for you to open up to him and speak to him.
I think for me, it's probably the more I get older, the more I realise that prayer actually has power. And I think like when we pray for things, like change actually happens. I think because we know that like God knows everything and he knows what we're thinking and all of that stuff, that I've sometimes just been like, oh God, you know what I want to pray about anyway. So, but actually I think it's like, no, prayer has power. We are not like a chess piece in God's big chess game. We actually are part of the story, and he's like, our prayers can change the world. And I think that's the mindset of prayer and the power behind prayer that I don't think I necessarily realised before.
Do you know what I used to think? Or not even think, but I didn't really understand how a conversation works with God, because obviously we can't see God, so it's like, okay, we're just communicating in this way. So when I would speak to, let's say, one of you guys, if we're going to have a conversation, you would speak, I would listen, and then I'll speak, you'll listen. And I forget the listening part, or I used to forget the listening part with prayer. Like, it's not just a run, like, or just going, God, this is how I feel, this was my day, this person did this to me, God, I need this. But like also taking the time to listen back for what God is saying to you. And there'd be so many moments in the past where I would just miss God in my prayers, because I would just be like, let me rant to you about my day, when actually it's a conversation. So that was like the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. I think that's so good, because I think a lot of people that do pray, a lot of Christians that do pray, they ask for, you know, the most extravagant things and they want it right away. I think we do live in a generation where like it's a microwave, you know, mentality where if I pray for something, I want it right now, this second. But a lot of the things about God is that he's, you know, he does stuff in like the process. And I think a lot of people do get, I'm speaking from my experience because listen, I'm a single guy, yeah? I want to... Listen, people out there, WayUK podcast people, yeah, I hope you guys are also listening on the visuals, not just on the audio as well. But yeah, savage. But I want a relationship. And when I was like, Lord, you know, I got my prayer list of what, you know, the attributes I want my wife to have. And I'm praying over that prayer list. And I'm asking Lord to prepare me to be a husband that he's called me to be. I want that now. And I used to get so obsessed with just that one prayer. And then I would be so obsessed with that one prayer, that's all I'd think about. But I think we need to be very careful of not being so obsessed with the things that we pray for and just, in a room, praying to God, asking him, you know, speaking to him through prayer, but then also making sure that we are keeping on with the faith and keeping on just doing the basic things as well and not just being so obsessed with that. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah. Well, I suppose prayer is also, it's a process of the emotions we're feeling and all of the stuff that's going on is actually giving that to God and being like, okay, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know how to deal with the situation, but I trust you in it and I'm going to give it to you and try and like you're saying, instead of obsessing over it, trying to be like, actually, no, I want God's peace and I trust God with it. And I think that's a really good practice to have actually as well, of being like not obsessing over the things we want. And some things we want really badly, if that's a spouse or if that's healing or if that's whatever it is. We can want things so much. We don't understand why we're not getting it in the way that we think we should. But yeah, prayer is about talking to God and he cares that you want those things and he cares that you're struggling. But it's actually like giving it to God and being like, I'll let you deal with this. I'll let you take this pain. And he'll in return like give us his peace, which is crazy but cool.
I like that, like what you guys are saying about the heart posture behind prayer. And I think as human beings, we can just complicate things and try and say to God, like if I pray like 6 times a day and if I recite this prayer in this way with the music in the background and get candles, then maybe like you might get a step towards like giving me the things that I want. And in a way we can almost manipulate with prayer. I don't really want to use like scary, harsh language, but like sometimes we can use prayer as like a tool and think, okay, if I do this, then I'll impress God. But like we're serving God, praying to God, not for what he can do, but just because of who he is. And I remember seeing a quote the other day that was like if this was the last day that God ever did anything for you, that is all enough to praise him, because that shows that he hasn't lied about who he is, that he's been faithful and all of this stuff. And I think with prayer, like you were saying about kind of like idolizing or obsessing over the things that we want, like it can be just simple as, God, this is what I need, but also, God, I need you above what I'm asking for. And like it says in the word, if you just seek first his kingdom, then he'll just take care of everything else.
And prayer isn't just asking for stuff too. I think that's, if you're thinking it as a relationship, if I was saying, Xenia, I want this from you, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing this? Why, like, that's not relationship. But actually it's talking about your day, it's saying when you're sorry for stuff, it's thanking you for doing stuff, it's acknowledging that God has done amazing things, and that's actually really important. And if we don't have that in our prayer, then we're really missing out something there.
Yeah, and like we said, it's like not just seeking God for his hand or what he can give you, but it's seeking his face and seeking who he is.
Do you think that prayer can make a difference?
I understand why people do think it can make a difference, but personally, no.
Yeah, it can, but to an extent. I'm not saying God has barriers, but yeah.
Absolutely. You can pray at any time, when you're sad, when you're happy, when you're depressed, when you've just won some money. It doesn't matter where you are in your life, you can pray at any point and you'll feel 10 times better.
I guess if it makes someone feel better, then it can make a difference, yeah?
Even if like you don't believe in God making it better, it still just makes you feel better as a person to know that like people are wanting you to do well.
I wouldn't be alive without prayer. I wouldn't be alive without God. But prayer helps.
I think that I go through different seasons where I need different things, and I know when I was at uni, I had a 40-minute walk to uni, and I was really used that time with no headphones in, just praying as I'm walking. And it was like I was walking with God every day. I really loved it. And now I'm not doing that. I do it in my car a bit more, but I do get a bit more distracted as driving. You have to concentrate a bit more. But in those moments where I'm like traveling and going somewhere, but I think it's those quiet times for me, I get so distracted and my mind just starts wandering. So I'm not a words person, I'm not a writer, but journaling for me really just like focused my thoughts and just writing out what I was actually thinking and feeling. And even if I can't read my writing, but I'm just there like in the flow of just writing, and I'm writing to God, I'm praying to God, I think that really helped me just to focus. And also it's really cool to look back on and see where I was and where I am now, and seeing the things that God has answered where I haven't necessarily realised, where I'm like, I'm stressing with this, I'm feeling really lonely, and then I'm like, oh, I don't feel lonely anymore, I'm feeling all right. And I think that's really amazing to look back on what God has done for me as well.
I love that. Prayer is really like a form of testimony, and I love how you write it down in journals. I used to journal prayer, and it's beautiful because like there's no one way to pray. Like a lot of people think that it's just with my eyes closed and like saying it verbally, but like you said, you can write things down, or like if you're into like making songs and stuff, you can make like lyrics into prayer, or like whatever you want to do, you can draw. Like there's so many different ways. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that helped me in my prayer life was praying with people. It not only did it bring me closer to my friends, but it also helped me see like, oh, that's how they pray. Oh, so then it's not weird if I do this. Like sometimes, because prayer is such an intimate thing at times, and I don't know what everybody else is praying like. To be honest, it's not really my business to know how my friends pray, but it can be helpful when you're starting out and you just need like a guidance, because if you find a way to just start with, then you can kind of pivot and then find a way that works for you. But starting is always the hardest place. So definitely praying with people can help. Yeah.
And it's also that in the Bible it says, doesn't it, when two or more are gathered in my name, that like he is there, he is present. So actually that power of praying with people and being united together, searching for Jesus, like we shouldn't underestimate that.
So I have a question about when prayers don't get answered. We hear a lot about like testimonies and on the other side, but what if you're in a place where like you're praying to God for something consistently and you're just not seeing the breakthrough yet? How would you deal with that situation? Have you ever dealt with that situation?
I have, yes. And I'll literally just say, keep being faithful. Like we serve a God that is so faithful. And sometimes, you know, as we said before, that God can answer in that moment, or sometimes God answers, you know, a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. So I'll just say, whatever you're asking for prayer for, just continue just to give it to God and not giving up. And obviously God puts before us obviously wise counsel as well, like leadership and other things like that. So I'd even say go to them with that prayer if it hasn't been answered yet. And there's community around you that can help you.
Yeah, I think the reality is that unanswered prayer is a part of life, and we're not always going to understand why, but it is just a part of life. And I think I'm reminded a lot of in the book of Daniel, the Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, if that's how you pronounce their names, when they go into the burning furnace, they're like, our God will save us, but if not, he is still good. And I think that's what, like, so my dad is blind, he's not been healed, as I've spoken before on here, and I think that's something he says a lot. It's like, God could heal me, but if not, he is still good. He is still like worthy of our praise. He is still an incredible God. And I think it's like what you said earlier, actually. It's like if God was to do nothing for us for the rest of our lives, he is still worthy of our praise. He is still the creator of the universe. He still actually cares and loves us and has done so much for us. And I think it is really tough because there's some things we don't make sense with a lot of, I think healing especially, I think is a very difficult one. A range of things, but it's actually knowing that God is still good. It may not make sense, but God is still good, and that's who we need to focus on. But that is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, I think that's so key about it being frustrating, because it is a real reality. If you're praying for something that you think is like very serious, like, God, I need this is like urgent, and you're not seeing breakthrough, it can be almost discouraging for your faith at times, if we're keeping it honest. Like, it can make you think, like you can might have some doubts coming up. But I was having a conversation with my friend the other day about this, and I was saying to her, like, the thing about faith is that, like, you shouldn't let the circumstances you're going through change how you see your faith, but you should let your faith change how you see your circumstances. And prayer is like a tool for that. Prayer is like a way of focusing. So even if things aren't going the way you want or the way that you hope for, that shouldn't change how you see God. Like, God is still in control. Like you said, like with your dad, like God is still in control, and your dad is still alive. He's still breathing. He's still active. Like, God is still using him. So even if it's not in the way that he would like, if it's not in the miracle that he wants, there's still a plethora of other ways. Like, he's touching other people's lives. He's spreading the gospel. Like, God is still using him. He's still a testimony. So it might not be the way that we want, but it might actually be the way that we need, which is not always nice to hear.
No, and I think sometimes there's also situations where we can't work out why.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely, I've seen so many people in my church and stuff like that where it's like, I don't understand why. I don't necessarily see how God's using this for the better. I don't understand why so many of my best friends have lost family members from cancer or all this stuff. I don't know why. And I don't, in my mind, I'm like, this is not for the better. I don't understand. And I think we won't ever understand. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. We just need to trust that God will be there even when he doesn't react in a way that we expect. And I did a Bible study recently with my staff team at church, and it was focusing on Judas, which was really interesting. I think we all paint Judas as a really bad guy, but actually we're probably very similar to him. And he was expecting Jesus to perform this big miracle and had this expectation of Jesus like conquering all the Romans and stuff. And actually Jesus didn't respond in the way that Judas was expecting. And because of that, he walked away. Yeah. And it's like, actually, and then Peter denied Jesus too. But what was different was the response from that. Peter was like, actually, no, I do still love you. I love you kind of thing, all that stuff. Well, Jesus said that to him, but whatever. But it was the response from it where Judas walked away and Peter came back and then obviously started the church and stuff. So I think it's a lot about we don't understand, but it's our response to that. Are we walking towards Jesus or away from him?
Yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, such a good conversation today. Amazing about prayer. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up there. So thank you guys so much for listening today on the Way UK podcast. And yeah, we'll see you next time.